All right, good day, everybody. Steve Prziborowski here. Welcome to episode 45 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. We're going to continue discussing oral interviews, one of the most important phases of the hiring process. So episode 45 is going to discuss fire department oral interviews, tips for success, part 4. Let's get going. All right, as a reminder, my two websites have a lot of great free information to help anyone be the best firefighter candidate they can be, not to mention the best firefighter once they get on the job and navigate their way through their career. ChabotFire.com and Code3Firetraining.com. Lots of great info. Also, these webinars are based on 2 of the 3 books I've had published, Reach for the Firefighter Badge and also the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, both available off my website. All right, things to do or know before the interview, but once you're at the location. So in our previous episodes, we've talked about how to best prepare, how to research the department, research the community, things to do before you physically leave your house. So now you've arrived at the location. Let's say your interview is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They say be there no later than 12:45, 15 minutes prior. So you decide to show up maybe about 12 o'clock in the parking lot, an hour early, just to get your spot, make sure you're in the right location. Double check everything, the details. That's nothing wrong with that. Make sure you have money in the meter if you need that. Make sure you're not parked in a fire zone, a red zone, a handicap spot, anything that might be, not the right thing to do. Let's just leave it at that. So you're there, you're getting ready to leave your vehicle and walk into the building. So let's get going. I've shared earlier, please arrive with plenty of time to spare because you never know what's going to happen. Traffic can always pop up, accidents can pop up, something happens to you or somebody else, your vehicle, a lot of things can happen. So plenty of time, nice and stress-free then. I touched on quickly parking in the correct location. Again, some places don't have a lot of parking. That's why it's so critical to scope things out in advance to see is there visitor parking. Don't park in the chief spot. I mean, there are signs sometimes, fire chief spot or command staff or fire department personnel only. Don't be that person that just, I'll just park here. Make sure you're parking in the right location, and you don't want to get a ticket either in the process. Remember, you're being watched. Now, let me say that. You've arrived in the facility, or at least in the parking lot adjacent to the facility. You're being watched because you never know where the room is or the rooms are where the oral interviews are taking place. Like, for example, one of the main rooms we use for our oral interviews faces the front parking lot. You can't really see in, but they can see out. Now, typically during the interview process, they shut the blinds to make sure that nobody is distracted and looking out the windows, because that would be sort of unfair to everybody. So we try to keep it just sort of neutral. Well, if there's no candidate or they have a break, they may be looking out the window. So you never want to be, how do I say this, doing anything inappropriate that you're being watched. Now, we all know that cameras are filming us everywhere. People are looking at us. But it's amazing sometimes when I've seen people get out of the car, when I've been in that oral interview room, we have time to spare. And it's like, well, let's see when our 1 o'clock shows up, and, we're just finishing up our lunch looking out, and you see someone get out of their car, and again, for whatever reason, I guess they realize they think nobody's watching them. They're sitting here picking their nose, or they're adjusting their body, or they're just doing whatever, or even we've seen people walk up to the window like 3 feet away, thinking that nobody's looking out, thinking it's just one-way glass, I guess, or two-way glass. I don't know. But anyway, we are. They can't see us. We can see them, and they're sitting doing this, or they're doing this, and it's like, dude, just don't do that. I mean, we don't hold it against them. Obviously, we're taught and we're trained not to be biased, not to discriminate. Totally get that, but you want to be realizing that someone's watching you. So just be very professional at all times. Just think of it that way, because someone's always watching you. Check into the correct location. Some offices, especially fire department administrative buildings, can be huge. I mean, depending on the size of the department, it could have multiple entrances, and it may not be easy to find the correct entrance, especially if there's 4 sides of parking all around it, and it's a huge complex with maybe not just the fire department, but city hall and other things. So read the instructions, put that in your whatever, figure it out. Somehow make sure you're going to the right location. I'll just leave it at that. So check in the right location. Treat everyone like your loved ones. I know this should be common sense. We know you're going to kiss the oral board's butt when you're in there. That's just the way it works, of course. However, be a human being that is kind, gentle, passionate, and just loves fellow human beings. So treat everyone like your loved ones, meaning always have a smile on your face, always, so say hello to people, good morning, good afternoon, whatever. You can't go wrong. You don't, I mean, you don't have to go overboard about it, but at least be respectful versus just being that person that's just stone cold, the stone cold killer face that's just like this, walking in with no personality. Because, when I'm at headquarters, obviously I know the people I work with and I enjoy saying hello to everybody. How you doing today? But when we have interviews, when we have strangers walk in the door and I'm walking by, I'll be the first to say, hello, good afternoon, how you doing today? How can I help you? Or just, hey, have a good day, nice to see you. Try to be respectful, because again, we're evaluating your character. And if you're treating certain people like crap, but then you go in the oral interview room and you treat them awesome, but then you leave and then you're treating other people like crap because I don't know what reason, maybe you're just, I don't know, that type of person, it's going to come out at some point. So be on your best behavior, and that should not be an issue. One of the things I shared in previous episodes was integrity. The definition of integrity is doing the right thing, not when nobody is looking, but doing the right thing when everybody is looking, because they are. It's okay to ask to use the restroom, and I encourage that. I encourage you, don't be the individual out front looking in the front window thinking nobody's watching you to adjust your tie or make sure your glasses are straight or whatever else, your hair is cool. That's why I encourage you, once you check in, smile on your face. Hello, I'm Steve Prziborowski. I'm here for my 1 o'clock interview. I'm about a half hour early. Is that okay? And then usually, of course, they're going to say, well, welcome. Please have a seat right over there. And then before you do that, would it be possible to use your restroom before I sit down and get ready? Of course, the answer is usually yes, because there's usually a public restroom. And at that point, obviously, make sure you're good to go. Make sure you look at yourself in the mirror. Make sure you wash your hands. You never know who's watching you. Trust me. I shared about that in one of the other episodes where someone walked into the room. They're in a suit for their interview, and here I'm in my Class A uniform, and I'm finishing up doing my business, and I'm washing my hands. They come in, do their business. Hey, dude. And I'm like, hey, dude. I have no clue who you are, but at least say hello, sir, or hello, ma'am, or whatever else. But then they didn't even wash their hands and they left. It's like, ooh. And then, of course, they were on our interview panel, and that was one of our candidates. And of course, they wondered why I wouldn't shake their hand. They're like, and this is before, social distancing was acceptable. Of course, a good candidate comes in and extends their hand, and I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, I got something, I don't know. And I made up some excuse, and the guy's looking at me like I'm an idiot for not shaking his hand. It's like, dude, I'm not shaking your hand because I know where your hand was or wasn't. Don't be that person. Things to consider now during the interview. So you've checked in, the proctor comes out, the proctor that may be the chief officer, like a deputy chief like myself, or a battalion chief, or maybe some chief officer, someone from the human resources department that walks out. The 3 or 4 raters are in the room getting ready for the next candidate, maybe reviewing your resume and application if they have that, but they're just getting ready, maybe grading the previous candidate, and proctor should come walking out. Hello, I'm Steve Prziborowski. And then, of course, and because there may be multiple interviews going on, so you see 3 people there. Hi, I'm here for Steve Prziborowski, 1 o'clock. And then, of course, you raise your hand, come on up. Hi, Deputy Chief Steve Prziborowski, pleasure to meet you. Welcome. And again, don't know where the handshakes will be with social distancing in the future, but we'll see. Steve Prziborowski, pleasure to meet you. Welcome to County Fire. We appreciate you taking the time to interview us. I'm going to give you the lay of the land, and then I'll ask you any questions, but I'm going to walk into the room in the back there. As soon as you walk in there, I'll let you introduce yourself to each of the raters. There'll be 3 raters inside there. Once you introduce yourself, you'll see your chair right there that I'll direct you to. You're going to be asked 11 questions in 35 minutes. So use your time wisely. I'll be timing you as well too. So if you're a slow talker and you're taking up a lot of time, I'll try to give you prompts that, you've got, so much time left, or please use your time wisely. Because again, we want you to succeed. We want you to be relaxed, but we want you to do your best, but we also want to manage the time, because we can't let you go over 35 minutes. It's unacceptable. It's unfair to the process. And we don't want to do that to anybody. Do you understand? I'm, oh yeah, I do, no problem. Then of course you walk in, and I usually tell the candidates before they walk in the room, all right, take a deep breath. Nice, relax. And then, of course, once they do that, I'm thinking myself as the proctor. I'm the one that I don't grade candidates. I'm just there to sort of be like the one that loosens them up, maybe the MC, the one that sort of gets them in the right room and make sure they leave the right room. So the proctor, I'm there, and as soon as right before I walk in the room, I'll usually have the candidate, I'll go, all right, smile on your face. You got this. Again, I say that to everybody because I want to be consistent. I have to be consistent, but I also want to make sure everyone's on their best behavior and provides us with the best them so we can evaluate who they are, or at least how they present themselves. So then candidate comes in, obviously, maybe shakes hands, maybe doesn't. We'll see how that goes with social distancing. And then when the interview is done, as the proctor, I'm the one that at 35 minutes will be, all right, time is up right now. I'll let you say goodbye to the Raiders here, and then I'll walk you out to the front door. And usually at that point, the proctor is the one, person says goodbyes. Sometimes people walk out of that room go, man, I tanked that. I sucked it. And I'm, again, the proctor, I'm not grading. I don't know how the Raiders are going to grade them. I'm the one that's like, hey, don't stress it. You can't control it. Hey, head up high. We appreciate you coming down and testing with our department. The results will be in the mail in a couple of weeks or via email in whatever, a week or two. Don't kick yourself. What's meant to be is meant to be. And I tell candidates this. When I went through the interview process, I thought I tanked it. I seriously thought I tanked it because I remember walking out with the proctor, who was our HR director at the time. And I remember walking out and I go, oh no, I totally forgot to bring this up, bring that up. And she was just so good. She's just like, Steve, don't worry about it. And she didn't say you did great because again, she didn't know. Don't be led down a false path with, oh, you nailed it. Hey, you never know. I mean, we should never be telling candidates you nailed it or you suck. We just try to stay neutral. I remember she telling me nicely, hey, you know what? You did the best you could. What's meant to be is meant to be. Don't worry about it. Results will be out in a week or two. And then what happens is meant to be. And I was like, well, you got a good point. So I left the room and everything else. And she walked me out to the front. And then, of course, I left. But again, during the interview we're talking about here, during the interview, everyone's got their own style. Remember, you may be in there for as little as 8 minutes, maybe as much as 35 or 45 minutes. It's good to see emotion because we do not want robots. Hello, my name is Steve. I want to be a firefighter to save lives and property and give back. Thank you. Please don't be that person. We don't want that person. You got to show personality, charm, charisma, engagement, communication skills, but also try not to take it too overboard. Now, here's the thing. I'm sharing my opinions. That's all they are, is my opinions. Everyone's got an opinion. So you do as you feel is appropriate. I'll just leave it at that because again, what works for me may not work for you. Like I'm a fan of don't put pictures on resumes, but then I've talked to other guys that say, you know what, as a Raider, I don't care if they got a picture. I don't care about the picture. I care about them, which is true. I'm not going to fail somebody because of a picture. Trust me, that would be illegal, unethical, and everything else. But it doesn't help, at least in my opinion. But again, it doesn't hurt their score because we're still grading them. Now, I've seen candidates almost start crying to the point of over emotional. I mean, you're going to be asked things about your life. You're going to be asked questions of, tell us an example in your life when this happened or that happened. And you may be bringing up very emotional, hard, challenging things to talk about. Maybe the death of a loved one, death of a family member, maybe something bad you experienced or were exposed to. We get that. And there's nothing wrong with that, again, because you want to be a good storyteller to engage the audience because you want the audience just on the edge of their seat because that's a good storyteller that helps connect you. But you also don't want to be the one that, ooh, 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 ooh. I mean, I've seen people just, and it's just like, I mean, I can see waterworks because when you start let's say you're telling the death of your father, how it was a tragic situation in your life as it should be. We expect you to start tearing up and don't be surprised if the oral board's usually at that point, hey, just no problem. Here's a tissue, take a deep breath, just take a second to collect yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, if you overboard it and you can't control the emotions, it may potentially go against you because if that's how you're handling an oral interview, how are you going to be when the stuff's hitting the fan, when you're out on the emergency scene and you've got something really life and death in front of you? Are you going to be that way? We don't know. And maybe it's just an interview. And so the point is, you don't need to be an actor because I've heard of some people actually saying that, well, I'm going to sort of try being, this way to help get the sympathy of the oral board, make them feel sorry for me. And well, be very careful about acting. Even if you're a trained actor or you're not a trained actor, just be very careful. We want you. Now, we also don't want you to be a name dropper. What I mean by name dropper, everybody has those names they know. And usually the name droppers in the fire department interviews are usually it's like, well, yes, my dad is a firefighter. My dad, John Smith, captain on engine 1 on the B shift, he was firefighter of the year here last year. And then of course my best friend Joe Johnson, firefighter on engine 3 on the C shift, okay, here's the thing. If you don't have family members or friends that are in the fire service, don't take it personal. I never had family members in the fire service. I still got hired. I had a lot of friends, but not family members. We don't care if you have family members or friends. And it's okay to mention that, but don't shove it down our throats. When I say shove it down our throat, it's okay to be able to say, hey, you know what? When we ask, hey, what made you become a firefighter or want to become a firefighter, or how have you prepared? And you throw it out there. It's like, well, I had a chance to talk to my father who's a firefighter, just leaving it as that. I had a chance to talk to a couple of my friends and other family members that are also in the fire service, leaving it at that, and then just going down the path. And then maybe the panel might throw it out back at you and say, oh, you got a father in the fire service. Hey, you have some friends. What department do they work for? Now, they may or may not ask that. But if they do say, what department does your father work at, or your mother or your sister, or whatever else, then of course it's okay to be able to say, oh, my father is obviously John Smith, and he works actually for this department, he blah, blah, blah. Okay, just leave it at that. But don't shove it down our throats, and don't use it more than like once or twice. When I say that is I've had candidates who maybe their father was on the department or their friend was on the department, and they said it like 10 friggin' times. It's like, dude, I get it. I know who you're for. And then here's the challenge with being a name dropper is, number one, you can potentially annoy the panel. We get it. But you can also maybe have it go against you, because be careful of the name you drop. You may think that name you're dropping is a rock star, A+ individual that everyone loves. But think about it, in life, there's always people that everyone sometimes likes and dislikes. No one is ever 100% truly loved. And I hate to sound this way, but your friend, or God forbid, even loved one that you know in a different light because that's all you know them as, such as maybe dad, brother, sister, mother, you should be their number one fan. I mean, I get it, but that doesn't mean everybody else is their number one fan, because if that name that you drop, whether you voluntarily showed out there or they asked because you said so-and-so is a firefighter on this department or just a firefighter, that name could go against you. I mean, because potentially, you think about it, every department, just like every organization, has those that are performing at the 90% level, those that are performing at the 80% level, and those that are performing at the 70% level, and even some that are bordering 70 to 60, but barely squeak to do the bare minimum, and those sometimes that just get in trouble all the time. Maybe your father, sister, brother, mother is that troublemaker that consistently gets in trouble. And you know what the old saying is, acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. You could be totally opposite. You could be totally opposite and nothing like them. But unfortunately, again, that may go against you. Now, oral boards are taught and trained, or they should be taught and trained, to not discriminate, not be biased. That's what should happen. But humans by nature can be biased. It's just human nature. The challenge is not letting that bias or discrimination get into the oral interview process and have it go against the candidate. But sometimes it's hard not to. We shouldn't be doing that. We can't be doing that. It's illegal to, discriminate, but don't give them ammunition to discriminate or be biased against you. Listen, listen, listen. When I say that, one of the things you're getting graded on is your listening skills. So when they ask you a question, so Steve, tell us about yourself. A lot of candidates sometimes don't listen to the question, it seems like, because it's okay to be able to say, can you please repeat the question? There's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's a long question. I've seen some interview panels that ask like a 5-sentence question. All right, first part of this is a multiple part question. The first part is, tell us why you want to be a firefighter. The second part is tell us why a firefighter at this department. Third part, tell us how you prepare to be a firefighter. And then 4, tell us how you plan to make the department better. I got a headache just thinking about that. Some departments don't, they don't separate them, and it's very confusing. That's why you got to be a darn good listener. Some departments actually place the questions in front of you to follow along with, which is a good crutch if that happens, but don't guarantee that to happen. Again, you've got to have great listening skills, because when you're out in the fire ground and your captain goes, I need you to grab the 1 3/4 green line, get it to the front door. I'm going to do my 360 and I'll see you in about a minute and a half. You can't be that person that says, okay, was that the 1 3/4 or the 2.5 inch line? Did he say red line or green line or purple? Hey, Cap, you can't be that. You've got to have great listening skills. But again, it's okay. And even like when you're answering a question, it's not uncommon to, start answering your question and maybe you start rambling down one road and you forgot what the question was. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's okay to say, okay, time out here. Let me grab a drink. I believe I just took this question way over here to the right and I need to get it back on the right road because I think I rambled on. I also totally forgot the question. My apologies. Can you please repeat the question? What's the oral board going to say? No, we're going to the next one. No, they'll happily say, we'll be happy to repeat the question. Again, we're here to make you successful as long as you can produce in the allotted time and provide excellent answers and connect with us. Be careful what you say. Here's some thoughts as well too. I love it when candidates come into an interview and they say, well, why do you want to work here? Or they say why they want to work here. And they say, well, I'm born and raised in this town here and I know the city inside and out. Okay, you're not required to know the city inside and out. And also you're not required to be born and raised here. I mean, not that many departments, well, no department requires anyone to be born and raised there. Some departments may have a residency requirement where you have to live in the city to work there. I get that, but not born and raised. So does that make you better than somebody else? I've known some of our best firefighters have come from out of state, born and raised out of state. They moved here, they learned the job, they've learned the area, and they're awesome people. And they're great firefighters or whatever rank they are. So you're saying you're better just because you grew up here? It's interesting because when I work with candidates and I try to help them and sometimes I give them, a question like that. And so many of them want to say, well, I'm testing with Oakland. So I'm going to tell Oakland I'm born and raised in Oakland here. And I always love that. I'll follow it up afterward just with a thing. Okay, so you know everything about the city inside? Oh, yes, I do. Here's the critical moment because you never know if an oral board member is going to say, okay, can you tell me where 89th Avenue is? And the answer is not between 90th and 88th, like some people, well, it's between 90th and 88th, that's 89th. No, that's not what we're looking for. Does it run east-west, south-north? Or even better in Oakland, if you know the city of Oakland, tell me where 89th Street is. Well, it's down by International, no, there's 89th Avenue. There is no 89th Street. We're not here to jam you up, but if you throw something out there, either trying to BS the panel or trying to maybe get preferential points because maybe you think you're better than somebody else, be careful because you never know when a panel member may call your game and call your BS. Now, granted, if I asked the candidate, if I was on the Oakland Fire Department oral interview panel, where's 89th Street? And the candidate were to come back and say, well, actually, there is no 89th Street to the best of my knowledge. The streets only go up to 59th Street, if I remember correctly, 59th Street, and that's pretty much the Berkeley border, Berkeley-Emeryville border. There's an 89th Avenue down closer to San Leandro that is obviously runs, east-west and blah, blah, blah. If a candidate came back with an answer that basically called my shit, I'd be pretty much, okay, I got nothing. I'm not going to ever ask you another question because you answered my question and you know what, your stock probably rose. But if you come back, if you throw something out there and they call you on it and you can't answer it, potentially your stock may lower and your stress level may rise because now you're going, uh-oh, I didn't answer that one correctly. Don't do that to yourself. So again, no need to say that because it really doesn't make a difference. It's okay to say you're born and raised here, but when you say, I know the city inside and out, most of our, how many firefighters know it inside and out? I mean, we teach firefighters to learn the streets, know the streets, but unless the city is 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet, which pretty much no city is, it's hard to know a city inside and out. Plus you're saying, yeah, just don't go there. Use correct terminology. For example, truck versus ladder, engine versus pumper, medic versus rescue. Every department does things differently. Like most departments call their trucks truck companies, but a lot of departments call them ladder companies. Most fire departments call their engines engines. Some of them call them pumpers. Some departments that have ambulances, whether they transport or don't transport, they may call them medic units. They may call them rescue units. They may call them ambulance. A rescue does not look the same across the country. An engine and a pumper usually look the same. I mean, obviously the YLN engines look maybe slightly different because they have four-wheel drive capability and maybe higher, smaller. Trucks typically look like trucks, but rescues could be huge, big rescues versus an ambulance. The point I'm saying is do your homework, do your research. So if you're testing for the city of Phoenix Fire Department, Arizona, Phoenix calls their truck companies ladder companies. Is that wrong or right? No, it's what Phoenix decides to do, as do all the agencies in that Phoenix Valley. They're ladder companies. So if you were to go to a Phoenix interview and say, yeah, I want to work for Phoenix Fire because I want to ride the truck companies, they're going to look at you like you didn't do your homework. You didn't do your research. You're clueless. Now, is it going to make or break you and guarantee or not guarantee the job? Never know. Again, it all comes down to those panel members. Do they like you? Do they see you as a potential coworker, someone that they could work with? That's what it comes down to, is their connection. But use the correct terminology. And again, you'll find out by researching. So don't regurgitate, speaking of researching, the website info. I mean, you're usually never going to get asked specifically, how many firehouses do we have? How many square miles do we have? You may get asked a question such as, tell us about the department, or tell us how you prepared. And then maybe then you can sort of share the information from the website. But the last thing the Oral Board wants to hear is, okay, what I know about the city of Santa Clara Fire Department, there is 10 fire stations. On duty, there is X amount of people every day. There is 1 battalion chief. There is 10 engine companies, 2 truck companies. You know what? That just, it looks like you memorized the website or some document, and now you're just spitting it out. Anyone can do that. Paraphrase it in your own words. That's the key, I think. Manage your time. Like I said, when I serve as a proctor for oral interviews, I mean, no one says I couldn't do it, but I'm the first to say the candidate, besides trying to make sure they're ready to go and good state of mind, I'm like, hey, you've got 11 questions, 35 minutes, use the time wisely. I'm not giving away any of the secrets. I mean, every candidate gets 11 questions and 35. Some may finish in 10 minutes and have 25 minutes left. That's okay, fine, perfect. We get a 25-minute break before the next candidate. Some may take up all the time. That's their right. The key is we don't go over 35 minutes. So when candidates maybe have I've seen candidates 6 questions in and there's like 10 minutes left, then I'll tactfully in between a question saying, okay, just want to let you know, for the first 6 questions, you still got 5 left, but in 6 questions, you've used up 25 minutes of time. So you've got 4 questions in 10 minutes. Please speed it up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to tactfully, respectfully cut you off just so we don't go over our time and then affect the entire rest of the day and give you an unfair advantage. Oh, no problem, Chief. Again, but not every department may do that. So you may not know your time. There may be a clock on the wall, there may not. What I'd encourage you probably not to do is keep being that person that continues to do this, because that looks like you got somewhere to go, or even worse, you're doing this. No, I'm not checking I'm not checking my Facebook. Oh shit. Oh no, I'm just checking yeah. Try to do that as best you can. So the best rule of thumb is don't be a talker that spends more than a couple minutes in each question. I've touched on the opening statement. That first question, tell us about yourself. That's the question that maybe should be 2, 3, 4 minutes the most, no more than 4 minutes. None of your answers to any question should be more than 3 or 4 minutes, except for the opening statement, like I said, 3 to 4 minutes max. Every other answer to the question you get should be about probably a max of 2 to 3 at the most minutes. At least 30 seconds, because we don't want one-word answers, but also don't ramble on. So if you're making sure and somehow realizing that you're not spending more than a couple minutes in each question, you should be fine. They usually give you plenty of time. Watch your nervous habits. I've seen all types of nervous habits: picking your nose, adjusting yourself, tapping yourself, doing this shit here, hands in pockets, just tapping the foot. When you're doing any of those nervous habits, guess what the oral board is doing? They're sitting there distracted and they're doing this. Or other nervous habits, poor communication skills. So when you're doing those things, potentially you run the risk that the oral board isn't focusing on you, they're focusing on the nervous habits. So try to catch yourself. I think self-awareness of an issue or a problem or negative or a weakness is half the battle. Half the battle is knowing about the weakness. What's the other half? Doing something about it. So I still occasionally say ums and ahs, but I've trained myself, don't ask me how, over the years. I can almost sense it coming because I try my best to think before I talk. Not everyone does that, and I've been guilty of not doing that. But when I sense an ah, or whatever coming up, I'll usually try to catch myself and pause. Sometimes they slip out, but watch those nervous habits, and more importantly, know yourself more than anything. So in the next episode, number 46, we'll continue to discuss more of my suggested oral interview preparation tips so you can do the best you can on the most important, number 1 process, the oral interview. So, as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time, my contact information, social media footprint. Until the next episode, take care, everybody. Be safe and be well.